I really wanted to set this camera up actually to just talk. Well, I wasn't even actually planning on talking. I was just thinking that currently I'm 17 years into my career, and I was just literally just right this second remembering that when I started the career, one of my very first big leaps was I worked at a salon that I was hired out, like straight from school, and I remember basically we made like $9 an hour, and that's kind of ridiculous. I think I was making like $900 a month or something. I got the bravery to try to look for another salon, and I went like straight for the best salon in Orlando and told this owner, who, praise be to Joy, literally that was her name, and I told her that I was working at another salon and I was doing great with retaining clients and all of the things. My clients were happy, and I had just started doing hair, and you know, to my reflection, I was automatically good at hair. So this woman believed in me and she helped me get out of that salon. She bought my first introductory color package. She gave me a chair to work at in the nicest area in Orlando, and it took off from there. I worked as a commission stylist there for maybe 3 months. And the salon didn't really do commission at the time. They just did booth rental. And for the sake of numbers, this was 17 years ago almost, so maybe it was like 16 years ago. I remember the booth rental was like $333 a week. That's like $1,300 a month. And sure, at the time I was living with a boyfriend in a house that like rent was like super cheap. It was like, I don't know, like $800 a month or something. And he had a decent job. And I remember I had never done this before either. And this was like the worst person to do this thing with, but he was like, okay, well, I'll take care of the rent if, you know, you can't pay the bills. And I was like, okay, sweet. Just to be clear, that never happened. I always was able to take care of my own. So 3 months into it, I'm still doing commission, and this is so me. Adele was having a concert in Atlanta, and I really wanted to go, and I asked my owner if I could go, because technically that was my boss. And she said no. I wasn't bringing in that much money, maybe anyways, I'm not exactly sure, but like she was just basically like, no, you can't, you have to work. And I was kind of like, well, if I went booth rental, then you basically couldn't tell me I couldn't go, right? Because I'd be responsible for my booth rental. And she was like, yeah. So I was like, all right, bet, I'm gonna go booth rental then. And I really wanted to go to that concert. The funny part about it is I didn't even go to that concert. I barely had any clientele at that time, and I jumped the gun and went right into booth rental. So here I am 17 years later in Melbourne, not even Orlando, and I am renting a studio that's literally, it's only $309 a month or week, so it's actually cheaper, and I'm struggling. And the irony in that is it's not lost on me that 17 years later I am building from scratch, and I'm pregnant, so like the consequences are a little bit higher at this point. But what about it then was so yes, and like I could do this, and like I have 17 years of experience. Like that was literally starting from scratch. I'm not starting from scratch again. I am an expert. I have specialized in hair extensions and lived in color for a long time. So far the space has been like mainly designed for head spa. I definitely I was really proud of the fact that I was changing the career in the sense of getting out of color and hair, and I was focusing more on the elements of like nurturing and loving and treatment. And that is cute. I really still do. I'm proud that transformation is starting to kick over. I just also like cannot pay anything basically if I don't also do the skills that I have. So I've really just had to like laugh at myself that like 22-year-old me was so down to take on such a big risk and made it happen. And like I didn't just like make it happen. Like that career at that time was really thriving. I gave it my all. I was a very different person. I definitely had really unhealthy habits when it came to men and drinking and partying, and just like I had lived in a smaller area like this, and then living in the city. I definitely like navigated that a little messy at first, but praise the Lord, I had a best friend who was in recovery, and I really still do think that was like the saving grace for me. I went to a lot of AA meetings, whether I wasn't an addict at the time, but it really helped me because I did have addict behavior in my home growing up. So without going to Al-Anon, which I probably should have went to, I got a lot of the lessons and like that lifestyle example from her. So I was able to like figure out how to like shift myself and create a career that was really financially stable. Like I was really financially stable for like, I don't know, like at least 10 years until I was let's say until I was like 33. Then things started to kind of fall apart. I was seeking help for the habits that I had, which was bulimia. There was a lot of other like addictive behavior. I wasn't necessarily drinking a lot, but I was in unhealthy relationships, and it was kind of getting cool, if you will, to do the spiritual work. And I hired a coach, and I just was really like struggling to hold on to anything that I had fabricated at my life at that time. And it all just started to kind of like seem invaluable, and like literally invaluable. I just like kind of didn't care. I was like really struggling with taking on the client's emotions that I was experiencing, and I also, because I was learning a lot about myself and my patterns and my emotions, I was really wanting to share that. And I felt like this, like, I need to like wake up the world and like heal them. And like some days I'd be like, yeah, I'm really gonna do that. And then some days I'd be like, I just need to go like really care for myself. In that time frame when I was working with a coach, and then I stopped working with her and I started working with her doing retreats and facilitating things, which was like, whoa, this is like really, it filled my soul. I still was like, I needed something for me in like a really big way. So I stopped doing hair full time, bought a van, and I had at the time won an Instagram giveaway, because that was like easy to win back then, I guess. I'd never won anything at that time, but I had won an Instagram giveaway for a helicopter pilot lesson in Alaska. And I just took that as a sign of like, you could change your whole life. So I did. I shut down the business that I had there. I shut it down full time. So what I ended up doing was built out the van. That's a whole nother story. Drove to Alaska, and through the year and some change and a half or so that I lived in the van, I just would park the van at the airport, fly back home to Florida, and work on clients every like 7-ish weeks or so in order to like maintain the life I had, which was super simple. My van was basically like camping, not even glamping. I was just really like out for the experience and like really needing the time for me. I definitely had convinced myself that I was also going to like make it on YouTube and Instagram and share all these things. But as it turns out, that version of me really needed that time for myself. I shared some, but a lot of that was for myself. A lot of driving alone, a lot of meeting new people, just really like expanding the boundaries of who I am. I came from a smaller place in Florida. I really had to kind of identified a lot with like what my life had looked like so far, and then going out west and then having a whole new experience like opened up my mind and my eyes that like who I had been so far was really like flexible. I could change it. I could change it, and that continued on for a while until it started to feel like I definitely still persisted in really bad relationships. The last relationship on the road was like just absolutely insane. He was an Alaskan crabber that I met in Alaska, and just if you know anything about that profession and like that extreme like danger and excitement, like that never goes away with somebody when they come off of the ocean. And so that was pretty toxic. And so in San Diego, when that relationship finally fell apart, I had just kind of like heard most things kind of come to me like as an intuition whisper, and I've been brave enough up to this point to follow it and literally have no idea where things are going. And I had like heard a whisper, go to Jackson, and I had never even heard of Jackson. And as far as I was concerned, I only really knew of like Jackson, Mississippi, which I was like, yeah, I ain't going there. And a woman came up to me in Target and was just like basically unsolicitedly telling me that she had just gotten back from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Okay, so I looked it up, and somehow one of the first things that came up was wedding destination. It's like it's like the best wedding destination. This was in 2019. Like early in 2019, like April or something, and I was like, yeah, I could do wedding hair, and like that's like not chemicals, that's not even like a consistent clientele base, like, well, yeah, let's do it. So I found a girl on Instagram, reached out to her. She ended up being my friend, still my friend now. She had like a studio that I could park my van at and take a shower. She had work, she owned a barber shop. Like it was just like, wow, this is like the most amazing thing that could possibly happen. And I don't remember exactly. I think I still was traveling back to Florida when I first started in Jackson, but Jackson was only meant to be for the summer. And it was interesting because a lot of people lived in their vans or in their cars in the summertime because it's like a highly tourist populated area, but just like in the summertime, and the weather was like just to die for. And that went really good. I made really good money. I enjoyed it. I had so much fun. Of course, I met a boy like 11 days into being there who was so fun. He just like, he's still my friend now. Really will go down as like one of the best relationship experience for growth that I would have in my adult life at this point. I'm still working on this one right now. So when I started to fall in love with this place, and I had never seen the seasons really change, other than the year before when I was traveling back from Alaska. I was like driving down in mid to late September, so I had gotten like a glimpse of like, wow, this is a really amazing like experience, but I had never seen a place go from summer to fall to winter to spring to summer to fall, winter, spring. And it was like, as I was watching the leaves die, I felt like I was dying. And I also had no direction of where to go next. The van was really cool, but I had really missed like a home. And so long story short, I found a cabin in Jackson, which was really outside of Jackson. And then I found a salon. That salon went really great, actually. It wasn't that hard to build a clientele there. And so I set off on you know, creating somewhat of a life there. And I wasn't even really that scared because it all happened so easily, and it was like, oh, if I could do it here, I could do it anywhere. And a lot of this is kind of a pep talk for myself, because I kind of forget that I did start from scratch somewhere, and it went fine. So obviously we all know what happened in 2020. COVID hit, and I had been basically like not living a traditional life prior, just like infrequently making money. But it was my choice. So COVID basically took me out of the game, and the salon that I was working at, which is like totally fine, they were regimented on the mandates for COVID masks and things like that. I was really struggling wearing the mask working. Super out of nowhere, a studio space became available, as it would be, and even being in the most expensive place in the country, it was cheaper than what I'm paying right now. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Then I can control my own environment, I can get all of my money, because it was like a 50-50 split there, and whatever. So I built out that studio. It does actually go really well. I'm just like unhappy with it. I'm unhappy with doing hair. I'm unhappy with the relationship I was in. Was really like not, I just wasn't living out my purpose. Like I had gone back into like what was making me money and what was keeping me afloat, but I wasn't like brave enough to show up on the internet and talk about the deeper things that were really mattering to me, like how I was becoming trusting to do these things, how I was experiencing life, how healing certain aspects of my life were creating the manifestations around me, whatever, all of the etc. I was building great relationships, which is pretty cool. Still just kind of was like not really thrilled with what's happening here. I eventually like got rid of the studio, broke up with my boyfriend. I worked out of my apartment for a little bit. I still felt unsure and uncomfortable. I was like, where do I go? Where do I move? Things needed to like, I needed to like shift and change. Just really, I get uncomfortable and then I try to like make a big leap in life, and that's kind of where I even just had this experience yesterday where I was like, oh, it's just, my studio is expensive. I don't know how to survive under these conditions, meaning like my paying for everything to live, paying for work, and preparing for a baby. It just is overwhelming. And so I started to look for another studio and like, how do I break this lease and try to make, like, again, I had just said this on another Instagram video that like I take a big leap instead of just being like one step in front of the other, just making something happen. And so today I'm back to remembering that like I have done one step in front of the other before, and it did work. I'm in a new place, and it's so funny that like my confidence can have any kind of shaking, that 17 years in the industry doesn't just show up as confidence, that I feel like I've got to prove myself to a whole new population, which I've already done that before. So, I'm just really pep talking myself into saying like one foot in front of the other has worked for me in the past, and I don't need to jump off of the ledge. So I'm back to reminding myself that I still have the 17 years of experience to build a clientele once more, and the desire to build something more sustainable has never been this heavy and this divine burdened of like I have to do it for the sake of like my future and baby's future, and just like my mental health. Like I'm very stressed when it comes to money. And like, what does my future look like, etc. Like these things sort of need to kind of like come to a conclusion, and the conclusion could just be my realization and just being really honest with myself that I've done this before, I can do this again, And it's like this weird reminder that sometimes I need to be reminded, like, this isn't I have started from scratch. I know what starting from scratch looks like. This isn't starting from scratch, this is starting from experience. So, like, this is starting from experience. Like, I've been here and done this before. It's time to just, like, show up where I can. And while I am a little bit disappointed in even myself that I wasn't able to create something prior to when the baby came, it just is what it is, right? It is life. And just like really remembering that I have the experience to do this. It's not my first rodeo. I have tools. And the reason why I'm out here today and I had set up the camera is a spiritual teacher I have been working with for technically like since 2018. So 6 years. She started to build her business, and when she had her first child, she started to build the business, and I had started to follow her, and I had definitely spent a lot of money on her products. And she had a baby coming at the time. So, you know, it's not lost on me that babies bring abundance, and that's what she said when she started to build that business, and I'm just really going to lean into that. And it had started with there was a Gabby Bernstein Spiritual Junkie course that I had bought through her as an affiliate because she was giving a Breaking Broke program, and her Breaking Broke program was a 40-day Kundalini practice that was like to shift your energy, create another state, and bring in abundance. And so it was like breaking your bad limiting beliefs, like your money story basically. And so baby comes in like 18 to 20 weeks or something like that. The practice is 40 days. So today was going to be day 1, and I had started this like a couple months ago. I made it 11 days in, and as I do, I get distracted. So I was distracted by a boyfriend, and well, not a boyfriend, this is baby dad, and I was giving my attention to that instead. And that's you know, for both of us, this is an important practice, an important ritual for me to complete, for both of us. And that's where I am right now. I'm out here to put the practice in, to shift my state, to clarify what it feels like to be in this place, and to do commitments, practices, and rituals the way that I understand them to create the life that I want. And a lot of the life that I want feels like it can be created here, sharing my voice, my heart, my story. And there's a huge sense of fuck it that I didn't have before, and here it is. So without further ado, I thank you for listening to this story, and I'm going to work on my practice.